Welcome to this edition of the Click and Pledge's Fundraising Command Center podcast, where we talk the why, the what, and the how in the Click and Pledge's ecosystem.
And if you're joining us, you know this is part of our ongoing The Why series.
Yeah.
Our role here, as part of the Click and Pledge team, is to move beyond mere feature lists and educate our partners and customers on the deeper behavioral mechanics that truly make a fundraiser effective.
Right.
We are here to talk strategy and psychology.
Exactly. And today, we are pursuing one concept, really, precision. We're setting a mission to move past what we call the guesswork era of suggested amounts. You know, the old method of just throwing random numbers onto a donation page and achieving true psychological accuracy.
Yeah.
This is a deep dive into how we leverage data, specifically through our tools and Telebooster, to speak the donor's language perfectly.
To set the stage, we really have to start with this fundamental driver of all human behavior. It's a concept from cognitive science called active inference. It sounds complex, but the idea is actually pretty simple. The brain is essentially a prediction machine. It's always trying to predict the future. And above all else, it seeks to avoid surprise. Surprise is mentally expensive.
Okay, let's unpack that central idea first. If the human brain is hardwired to minimize surprise, what does that look like on the screen when a donor is trying to support a cause they love?
It looks like cognitive friction, or as the psychologists might call it, high free energy. Think about the classic, simplest donation form, the one with the massive blank text box.
Right, yeah.
When a donor lands on your page and sees that blank space, what are they facing?
They're facing a choice that requires, actual mental calculation. They have to stop the momentum of their intent and figure out how much is appropriate, or how much can I afford without surprising myself later.
Precisely. That blank box represents pure, unconstrained uncertainty. They could type in $1. They could type in $100,000. In technical terms, we refer to this entire universe of every possible number, from 1 cent up to, a theoretical infinity, as the state space.
The state space. That sounds vast and exhausting.
It is. We recommend thinking of the state space as this chaotic, three-dimensional cloud of every possible dollar amount. It has high entropy, which just means high disorder, high uncertainty.
And that's where most organizations ask their donors to operate today.
That's it. They are asking the donor's brain to search through a chaotic universe to find the right number.
And if the brain's goal is active inference, to avoid costly surprise, it looks at that chaotic state space and just recoils. That's that high free energy moment where donors often just abandon the process entirely.
Exactly. The stakes here are critical. A donation form that uses a blank box or generic suggested amounts is costing you money every minute it's live because it forces the donor to expend cognitive effort.
So it's not that they don't want to give.
Not at all. We suggest recognizing that a donor doesn't actually operate in that massive, chaotic state space. They operate within a much smaller, much tighter, personalized orbit of possibilities. Their brain has already constrained what is feasible for them. The trick is helping them find that orbit instantly.
So the core problem we see is that most fundraising teams are dart throwing at the state space, just hoping to hit the right number. But our recommendation is that we shouldn't be searching the whole universe. We need to calculate the donor's specific personalized orbit. So how do we transition from that chaos of infinity to that clarity of precision?
This is the moment where we move from abstract psychology to actionable data science, which is the core strength of our Telebooster tool. Our recommendation is that we stop trying to guess and instead use the power of behavioral data to map that specific orbit.
And how does Telebooster do that without analyzing, every possible donor and every possible number? That seems impossible.
It's selective. It doesn't waste time analyzing the whole universe. Instead, it focuses on the geometry of the individual donor's behavior, specific past gifts, frequency, the time of year they usually give, and crucially, the context of the campaign they are currently engaging with.
Oh, okay.
It takes all those historical data points and uses them to draw a shape.
A shape. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I'm thinking of a simple range, but you're suggesting something a bit more complex.
Yes. We are suggesting a specific geometric shape called a manifold. For the average fundraiser, we can think of the manifold as a curved, precise sheet of paper floating in that chaotic 3D state space.
A curved sheet of paper. Why is it curved? Why isn't it just a simple line, like, say, $100 to $200?
The curvature represents nuance. A simple line is too rigid. The manifold reflects the fact that a donor's comfort zone isn't flat. It changes dynamically based on emotion, time, and context. but the essential function remains the same. This manifold represents the space of feasible possibilities for that specific donor.
So it's their comfortable, established behavioral geometry.
You've got it.
Let's ground this with a concrete example. I think that'll really illustrate the financial impact. Let's bring back donor Steve, who typically gives mid-range gifts, maybe $100 a few times a year.
Perfect. For donor Steve, based on the calculation of his giving history, his manifold might sit precisely between, say, $50 and $150.
Okay.
Now consider the implications of numbers that fall outside that curved surface. We recommend that any amount like asking him for $5 or conversely asking him for $5,000 is off the manifold.
Off the manifold. So what's the practical consequence? Does he just pick a different number or does he leave?
We suggest he leaves, or at least he experiences maximum cognitive friction. If you ask Steve for $5,000, you are introducing a surprise so severe it's like speaking an entirely different language.
Right.
That amount doesn't align with his history, his capacity, or his established self-identity as a donor to your organization. It's an option his brain just cannot comfortably process as a realistic choice.
So we're suggesting that asking for a radically high amount isn't just being bold in fundraising. It's demanding that the donor generate too much free energy to even consider the request. It forces them right back into that chaotic state space.
Exactly. When you ask him for $5,000, his brain says, wait, that's not the norm. Is this organization suddenly misreading who I am? Am I being pressured? That high uncertainty or high entropy is precisely what the brain is programmed to minimize.
And the easiest way to minimize it is to just click away.
The easiest way is to click away. That's powerful. It reframes donor drop-off not as a lack of generosity, but as a psychological reaction to unconstrained uncertainty. It's the brain protecting itself from surprise.
That is powerful.
It is. To use a simpler analogy, maybe think of the manifold as the donor's wallet having a built-in GPS. The manifold is the only road the GPS recognizes as feasible and safe. Anything outside of that is off-road and requires far too much mental steering and effort.
And IntelliBooster's job is to ensure we are only suggesting destinations that are already on the map.
That's it.
Okay, that makes the transition from chaos to clarity so much clearer. So we've used IntelliBooster to define this personalized sheet of possibilities, the manifold for donor Steve. What is the next critical step in creating an effective donation form and converting that intent into a click?
Once the manifold geometry is defined, we move on to the final stage. Placing attractors onto that surface.
Attractors.
Attractors are, simply put, the suggested donation buttons the donor sees on the form, the $50, $75, $100 options.
I can hear a skeptical fundraiser out there saying, but wait, if the manifold is already personalized to be, say, 50 to 150, why do we need specific buttons? Can't the donor just type any number in that range?
That's a great question, and it speaks to the subtlety of active inference. While the donor could type any number, the brain still prefers the path of least resistance. Typing a number requires a conscious decision.
And a confirmation.
Right. Our recommendation is to use attractors to pre-select the path that minimizes effort.
So the attractors are designed to be the absolute easiest option available.
Precisely. And the key feature we recommend emphasizing is that IntelliBooster dynamically changes these button amounts for every single visitor who lands on that page. It's not just one smart set of buttons. It's an infinite number of smart sets of buttons tailored to the individual.
Let's contrast two scenarios to really cement that personalization aspect.
Absolutely. We have donor Steve, our frequent mid-range giver. IntelliBooster places attractors exactly where his giving history tells us the gravity is strongest. $50, $75, $100, those amounts sit perfectly on his manifold.
But imagine a completely different visitor, say, a first-time donor who just signed up for a newsletter, has zero giving history, but maybe they live in a lower-income area.
For that new visitor, IntelliBooster might dynamically calculate a much tighter, lower-range manifold. It reflects that initial caution and lower commitment. They might see $15, $25, and $40.
Okay.
But crucially, the psychological effect is identical to what Steve experiences. Both individuals see amounts that feel instantly correct, instantly comfortable, and instantly low effort.
What's fascinating here is that we are not just picking numbers within a range. We are suggesting that IntelliBooster is placing those buttons precisely where the gravity is strongest, the most probable giving amount for that individual donor.
That's the perfect description. We build the manifold, And the attractor buttons are designed to feel like small, welcoming dips or gravity wells on that curved sheet of possibility.
So when the donor's intent arrives,
It doesn't have to search. It just rolls effortlessly into one of those wells.
this connects everything back to active inference and free energy minimization. By placing these personalized attractors, we are eliminating the need for the donor's brain to calculate.
Bingo. The ultimate goal is to minimize free energy, which translates here to maximizing the psychological ease of giving. The moment the donor sees that precisely placed button, the attractor that sits perfectly on their manifold, they experience instant resolution of uncertainty.
There's virtually no cognitive friction.
None. They don't have to wonder, is $75 the right amount for this organization?
No. They see 75, and because it is positioned precisely on their feasible possibility space, their brain responds, yes, this feels correct. This minimizes mental effort.
The choice becomes effortless. Surprise is minimized. Free energy is minimized. And the donation is secured.
That is a profound synthesis. It changes the conversation from how much should we ask for
Yeah.
to how can we eliminate uncertainty. Let's wrap up by outlining the key takeaway for our audience. We started with the chaotic 3D state, space, high entropy, guesswork, and high uncertainty.
And we recommend that effective fundraising must embrace the data-driven fact that precision is not about guessing or even just looking at averages, but about calculating the donor's individual behavioral manifold.
It's moving from the chaos of the infinite state space to the specific geometry of their personal, comfortable orbit.
Exactly.
That transition from chaos to clarity is what allows for what we refer to as surprise minimization achieved. It takes a high-effort, friction-filled decision and converts it into a low-effort, immediate conversion that feels natural.
The impact is profound. By leveraging IntelliBooster to speak the exact language your donor's brain can process, you eliminate uncertainty, you minimize cognitive friction, and you dramatically increase conversion rates. We encourage you to stop throwing darts at the state space and start leveraging data to speak directly to the feasibility space, the manifold of your donor.
That's a deep, actionable insight that transforms how we approach not just suggested amounts, but the entire donor experience. We've discussed how specific donation amounts can be off the manifold. But before we finish, let's consider the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Here is a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you optimize your strategy. If donation amounts can be off the manifold, in what other areas of your fundraising communications might you be asking donors to operate outside their feasible possibility space?
I see what you mean. We often use fixed suggestions for things like volunteer commitment. Are we asking a busy professional to commit to 5 hours of volunteer time when her feasible possibility manifold for commitment is really only 1 hour?
Precisely. Or perhaps event ticket pricing. Is your tiered pricing structure forcing a certain segment of your audience to choose a surprise price?
Or recurring giving frequencies?
Right. Are you suggesting a monthly commitment when their behavioral manifold is only comfortable with a quarterly gift? Analyzing all these points through the lens of active inference can transform every facet of your communication strategy, ensuring every request lands precisely within the donor's orbit.
Powerful stuff. The shift from guesswork to calculating the donor's behavioral manifold is clearly the future of frictionless fundraising. For more information about IntelliBooster and all Click and Pledge products, make sure to visit clickandpledge.com and request a one-on-one training or demo.
Whether you are a current client looking to implement these strategies or just curious about how our platform achieves this level of precision, just ask us. We will gladly get together with you to chat.
And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date with all the latest and greatest features of the Click and Pledge Fundraising Command Center. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the why, the what, and the how.